Oh, you guys, I am super excited for what we are about to dive into today here on the Future Medicine Variety Show. I am Andrea Donnelly, your cosmic shaman, the creator of the future medicine modality. I am here today with one of my absolute favorite people who is a graduate of my future medicine certification program and is not just a certified future medicine practitioner, but just an all around extraordinary human being with remarkable vision and insight. Ashleigh Grange. I'm so excited to have her here. Before I give her a chance to say hello to you all, I just also want to share a little bit more about what a remarkable human being she is. Ashleigh is an award-winning integrative health and intuitive wellness practitioner who's been working in person and online with people who are profoundly lucky, in my opinion, since 2013, when her dad was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. She ended up becoming his full-time caregiver and soon after started training as a holistic nutritionist. And here we are now in, my God, 2025, which is wild. It's actually Thursday, July 31st, and it's 3:11 p.m. So we've got a bunch of uh, ones and threes afoot here as we move through this. But Ashleigh is now a heart led, deeply self aware, from my perspective, spiritually curious human being who helps other people who possess that level of spiritual curiosity, ingenuity, and I would argue also depth to heal their bodies, their minds, their souls. She both believes in and leverages advanced technology like future medicine, flower essences, and other vibrational healing tools to help people really unlock very profound depth of experience, layers of healing, and to ultimately help people shift imbalances so that they're able to anchor into new levels of self mastery, self sovereignty, which for those of you guys who know me, I mean, that is my ultimate jam, is both helping people like Ashleigh to embody an even deeper level of their own magic and ultimately cultivate new ways of helping all of us extricate from this false matrix of misinformation and mother effing nonsense. So I am so honored to have you here, Ashleigh. Thank you so much. Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly couldn't have said it better myself.
I will. I'm really one of the things too. We were chatting before we got started. And for those of you guys who are new to my world, I am an ultra ham, and I really love. This is called the Future Medicine Variety Show because I've always had a big dream myself of helping to create an antidote to what I think is a lot of pure garbage in the world of entertainment in quotes. And so this is not just a forum for people like Ashleigh who have this profound, extraordinary vision to share their depth of knowledge, but it's also a chance for me to be an ultra ham. So I have, if you do know me, you know that I love a prop, and I have a couple of things that I pulled from my vast collection of things that are directly related to Ashleigh's wisdom. The first thing I have is this beautiful print that a friend of mine gave me a couple of years ago when I started my practice. And if you are listening but not watching the video, it is this lovely print that has an image of the sun and it says, "Make way for new growth." And I couldn't have picked, in some ways, a better piece of art to exemplify the wisdom that Ashleigh possesses. I have three things total. Number two here is this beautiful thing that Ashleigh has seen many a time. But for some of you, this may be new. And this is an embroidery of a heart, and it has these beautiful eyes woven into the heart. And there's something about my work in particular, future medicine, and the people who find me. And I often say that my work helps to help people see with the eyes of their heart. And Ashleigh is someone who moves through the world and has always moved through the world from that sense of heart-based, profound wisdom. And so this feels like the perfect freaking thing here to have as part of our little altar, as it were, to this magic. And the last piece is something that I recently made. And if you know me, you know that I am a woman who has long been wearing a tinfoil hat, really since I was a small child in a lot of ways. And so I've made a tinfoil bow because hats are not really my greatest look personally, but this this lens of perception of being able to see bigger feels like the vibe. So I've got our tinfoil bow here. So Ashleigh, now that we have gone through the props that we have for the episode, how how are you doing on this beautiful day? What are you feeling really? I'm just sort of curious. I know that I introduced you, but I would love to sort of hear you if there's any like gaps that you want to fill in, and just like, yeah, how are things?
Yeah. So I don't think there's any gaps. I think, just the emphasis on the self-sovereignty piece is really important. Like it's the old saying of like I almost want to like work myself out of a job, right? The more people are empowered, the more people kind of have that curiosity, that interest, and how do they self-heal and how do they support their own self-healing, right? So it's a kind of this idea of like I don't even see myself as a healer. I just see myself as someone who's supporting the innate process that's already going on. And I'm just encouraging people not to look at the physical body just as its own thing, which probably most of the people that are here listening probably already are starting to tap into some of those aspects. But the emotional side, the mental side, the spiritual side, all of these missing layers, I think, that are part of our healing. So that for me is like the mind, body, spirit. That's the key, right? The key to all healing is looking at not just the body, but all the other aspects of ourselves. So
Yeah, yeah. It really changes things when you shift your lens of perception so that you start to perceive, the like profound level of multidimensionality that exists. It really changes things for people in terms of their ability to be able to heal from a like true, very deep level. And I know, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been working with people, guiding them. I love how you said that, you're ultimately looking to work your way out of a job. Wouldn't that be like perfect that we live on a planet where people have really like embodied this and truly like in really healed in a very deep way. So for you, I know in a lot of ways, your journey of self-discovery and alignment into your own purpose was affected by, your dad's illness. But do you just tell us a little bit more about sort of how you found yourself here, and yeah.
yeah, and it's funny because so I'm a Cancer rising, and I never consider myself an intuitive person at any point, up until my dad was sick and long into his illness, and toward the end of my dad's illness. So it was about, they always say it's about 7 years from the time of diagnosis. Of course, the medical system is putting a cap on, here's the diagnosis, here's how long we think you're going to live, right? Very much dogmatic in that perspective, but it was about 7 years toward the end of his illness, and I kept saying to his nurses, like, what happens when he dies? He was in palliative care by that point. What happens when he dies? And nobody had an answer for me. And I kept thinking, like, someone must know the answer to this. And then I started to realize, and I started to dive into the Akashic Records, and a big part of like my spiritual opening, I was working with flower essences. That was through a big part of my dad's illness, but the Akashic Records just spontaneously opened for me one day while doing a plant attunement with my little guy. So he was about 5 months old at that point, and I tuned into a flower, and it's like everything opened up for me. And when I asked like why am I getting this information now, it was very much along the lines of you're sharing information about flowers, plants, nature, gems that has never before been exposed or shared on planet Earth. And I thought, wow, no pressure, right? But it's we're moving into a world where being part of nature and being able to use some of these natural tools, vibrational wellness, some of these technologies, right? Future medicine being, a key part of that, right? Future medicine is in itself part of nature, right? We are not divorced from nature. And I think, just as an aside, or perhaps it's related, we often, come up with these diagnoses and these conditions that mainstream medicine is giving us, and it's meant to separate us from nature. When all of our work, you and I, and so many others working in the sphere, it's really about drawing us back to nature and reminding us that we are not separate from nature. We are nature, right? It's kind of the idea of like connecting to your guides. And I have asked that, how do I connect better with my guides? And of course, the first answer is like you're always connected because you are us and we are you, right?
Yeah.
That sense of
Yeah.
divinity.
And that's such a beautiful way of like articulating it, because to me, one of the big things, like one of my big focuses, and I know this is, you understand this having worked with me, but and also just from your own perspective, I know that level of empowerment is so important, because to me, there's nothing outside of ourself, right? Like we're told over and over again from all angles. I think it's part of the misinformation campaign that we always need to be looking to, someone else, whether it's politics or religion or society or family, or like there's this way where we're told over and over and over again that in order to be able to be successful or happy or what have you, to live in society, that we always need to be essentially abdicating our own knowing. And it falls into the new age as well, because of that energy of like, oh, connecting to like someone outside of yourself. And it's like, at the end of the day, there is nothing outside of you. There is no energy outside of you that will ever know you and your own truth better. And to me, when we engage in that level of connection to the land, to the elements, to the plants, to the flowers, there's a way where they are, in many ways, are, from my perspective, nature is so much, it's she the entire experience is one of our greatest teachers. And I have called you since since we met a couple of years ago, a voice for the plant community. And to me, there is like nothing more important right now than connecting back to that, especially as we move through this year. We were chatting about this before we hit the record button earlier, but there is a lot of really crunchy, like energy that I can't even, I'm like, well, I don't even have the words to be able to articulate it. But like as we move through this year in particular, there is, I would argue, a really big level of disconnect that has always been true, I think, but it's really ramped up as we're witnessing like people engaging more, like that energy of abdicating responsibility, using tools like chat gpt and things to be able to like essentially do a lot of things that to me are not the vibe, because it's not energy of abdicating our voice, our creativity, our sense of connection to the written and spoken word, where we're like, so many people are leveraging tools. And it's not also to say that there's not like a time and a place to allow technology to work with and for us. But there is something very big of what this year in particular, where it feels like we're at a real crossroads, where people are making decisions that are going to impact them, not just in this life, but as they move through future incarnations. And so to me, there's like literally nothing more important or worthwhile than finding a way to like connect back into that wisdom of the heart, to connect to the plants, to connect to, the land and the animals, and really guide ourselves out of this mess. Because from from my perspective, and I know you share this like similar perspective, the answers do not lie within the system that created the problems, because the system benefits from those problems. The answers lie within our own hearts and our own ability to be able to really say, wait a minute, this system needs me. This system needs my energy to exist, not the other way around. And I feel like the more people start to really like remember that and move from that place of saying, all right, I'm going to appreciate certain benefits of something like technology or certain systems that exist, but ultimately the answers lie within me and my own voice, right? The answer is to reconnect to nature, to engage in a level of energetic mastery and start to like connect back to these ways that, prior to the birth, quote unquote, of like modern medicine, people used shamanic wisdom. They went to, women and men of like great wisdom who were connected to the earth to be able to help them like reconnect back to a level of heart-based wisdom. And we've fallen so far out of that. And it happened very quickly in a lot of ways too. So for you, I know that like that energy of nature is such an important part of the way that you help people. But can you talk a little bit more about how you leverage flower essences and, and just that like connection to the natural world, to herbs? Yeah, that would be, I feel like it would be really fun for people to hear. And if you have any like fun examples of like, client experiences when they have like started to leverage some of these tools that you help to shed light on and integrate back into people's lives, I'm sure that people would love to hear those too.
Yeah, so one thing that I couldn't help but think of when you're talking about things like ChatGPT and these tools that are meant to make our lives easier is that when the words that people are putting out, which are not, from their heart and from their soul, it's a mismatch in frequency. And so that also happens with flower essences, right? We think of them as a resonance, right? This energy is coming into us and it's shifting the energy, it's shifting our frequency, right? So that ultimately, even if there's a bit of a, we'll call it a growing pains, right? So some people might call them side effects, or people might say, shifts in energy that they're not expecting. They're having to change their life in a way that they weren't expecting to change their life when they take these natural types of vibrational remedies, natural medicines. So there's a resonance that happens, and it kind of forces them to make changes that, as we were talking about, people are not necessarily in the position where they want to be making changes all the time. And really empowering them to take those next steps. So flower essences for sure, they, people talk about things that save their life, right? Like my life was changed dramatically and so much for the better. And what's amazing, I don't know, this is one short story that I have to share, is how I discovered flower essences. So there's like a process of, having a family doctor, waiting to get a diagnosis. There's this whole thing that goes on to try and figure out, what are my dad's symptoms and like what label are we going to put on it? And so we're at the family doctor and he gives me this list printed out on an 8.5 by 11 sheet from what looks like a dot matrix printer. And this was in 2009, so it wasn't that long ago. But on this dot matrix printer, this guy was probably in his mid 60s, maybe early 70s, old school military doctor, had spent, his whole life in that kind of system, but he was an old school doctor. All kinds of things on there for supporting. It was basically a sheet that said, supplements to help your mental health. And so there were, obvious things that we might think of like omega-3s and maybe B12 and, all the standard kind of, yeah, let's take some of that. And right toward the bottom of the form was flower essences. And I thought to myself, like, what the fuck is this? What is a flower essence, right? What is a flower essence? And so amazing, right? And then so once I started digging into it, I found Dr. Bach and really like started that process of trying to figure out like what is this? And, how might it help me? And so I used flower essences throughout my dad's illness and during the later stages of his illness as well. And for myself too, right? After he died, the grieving process of being able to use these tools that had an infinite natural intelligence to them to be able to shift my own energy. And the, hornbeam is the one that I think of automatically as I was in a state of, I wouldn't say paralysis is not the best word. There was definitely, some elements of depression, right? Someone grieves the loss of the identity that you had as the caregiver. I'm having to do all this paperwork and I'm suddenly in this place where I'm like, okay, well, I'm not his caregiver anymore, but I'm still like playing this role that I'm having to carry out as a result of, obviously this, identity that I had at the time. And I just didn't want to do any of it. I didn't want to do any of the government paperwork. I didn't want to deal with death certificates and all the rest of it. And I took Hornbeam, and it was maybe I've used this description before, but think of like when you have a shower and the mirror is all fogged over. you come out of the shower and it's like completely fogged over and you can't see yourself. And I feel like flower essences for me are this like wiping away, this clearing. It's this sudden clarity, this newfound awareness, this sudden insight, this aha. And the way that nature works is really, I always describe it as being sometimes subtle. The energetics are sometimes subtle, but they're so sophisticated. They really tune into the heart of who we are and what our bodies are actually asking for.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And I think one thing too that's like so interesting, and I suspect you will relate to what I'm going to say. I think a lot of times people want, right, like an immediate, we're sort of in this state, and I think this is like exacerbated by social media in general, this like level of like immediate instant gratification. And to me, are people going to have profound, wild, shifts in relation? We'll talk about, my work sharing future medicine with people. Absolutely. I have people experience wild things very quickly. And there's also a way where that level of allowing things to also unfold slowly and to build over time and to really give your body, your mind, your spirit a chance to be able to integrate the wisdom and shift. Like, people don't necessarily always want to hear that healing is a journey, but to me, yes, do we want like quick, fast, awesome, miraculous wins? Absolutely. And is that going to happen when someone finds you or finds me? Absolutely. Those things will unfold. And there's another way where giving yourself the time, embodying a level of like patience and self-trust is also a really important part of the journey. And to me, I feel like a lot of people have sort of like lost that level of, we'll say, and I'm not like trying to like neg anybody, but there is a way where, in order to, from my perspective, really change your life, you need to embody that level of emotional and spiritual maturity and be able to say, I'm going to have some like hot, quick wins, and those are going to be really amazing. And they might even be like wild and massive. And also, I'm also going to dedicate myself from like I don't know, it's like a devotion back to our own truth, our own essence, our own, like, the Gnostics call it our divine spark, that like part of us that lies outside of this realm, which to me is a massive focal point. And my work is ultimately reconnecting people to that. And I feel like it's the same for you, that, journey of being able to say, like, here is a gift from the plant community, from the flowers, from the natural world. And the more that you reconnect, the more that you commit to that like art or that practice of engaging with this wisdom that is here to like guide you back home to yourself, is a power move.
Yes, and even I would replace the word commitment with devotion. I feel like that's like my devotion to myself and to my healing process.
Yeah.
It's very
Yeah, and it does. It really changes things for people when they're able to like have that level of maturity, or that level of being able to just like be there, be present, and really engage over time. Because I know that's one of the things that I see in my own work is like the more seriously people take their healing and their spiritual journey, the more people dive in, right? It unfolds in this way over time. The people who really like meet themselves in that place of devotion, it changes things for people. And again, like, do I want like some fast quick wins? Absolutely. And also, the more you engage in this art of, in a lot of ways, it's like a beautiful journey of self-discovery too. Yeah.
And people ask me all the time, and I think like my greatest success story is myself because I continue to have these experiences. And you think of like the typical way to take a flower essence is sometimes 3 to 4 times a day, right? And some people who are sensitive might take it once a day, or they might take it every other day. So we have to kind of like calibrate how we're using these tools as well. But sometimes, and this is from my experimental nature, is I really want to know the essence, the theme, what's really at the heart of what this flower essence will do. So I might take multiple doses in like a 5 minute span. And I have had these incredible, think of like a flower essence that hits you like a 2x4, right? Like there's an incredible emotional experience that comes from that. There's an emotional awareness that comes from that. So there are ways to use these tools in a much more sped up, immediate gratification kind of way. And you're going to have to experience and live with how that feels in your body as well. So make sure you have the tools, the resource to support you as you experience that too, right? So if you're wanting immediate gratification, like be prepared and have therapy and resources and tools and support and make sure, because that's fun too, right?
And it's really, there's, I think one of the other things too that I love about you, like tying in the like, bigger picture and like finding other ways to support yourself on the journey, right? I always say that when people work with me, and one of the people who's in the certification program this year mentioned it a couple of weeks ago and actually asked about it. She said, I feel like the other things that I'm doing right now to like support myself have amplified in their ability to help me as a result of this process of working with you. Does that make sense? And I said, absolutely, it makes sense. I always say that future medicine really amplifies the energy of anything else that people are doing. And I think that's also, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but I feel like in a lot of ways, right, that's like what draws people to me is future medicine as a standalone is profound and powerful, but there's a way where the more people engage with future medicine, from my perspective, it creates this energy of, yeah, just like amplification and really tuning people back to their own sacred truth. And it was so much fun to have you in particular find me because we had never. You are someone who I have long said this about myself, and you, my beautiful, sweet Ashleigh Grange, are absolutely one of the same, kinds of people. I've always said that I am like at the vanguard of most things. I'm just out here waving my freak flag, being ultra weird. I have been very different from most people since I was a child. Everyone who, for the most part, people, even when I was very small, people knew that there was something about me that was really different from other people. And I think for me, I tend to attract other people who have that like depth of perception, that like ability to have a really big vision, and who are also living at the vanguard of the human experience. And to me, you are someone who like so like brilliantly is like just like there also at the vanguard, just out here, helping the good people of earth to be able to like find our way back home. And I really like, to me it was just such a like wild joy. We had never spoken when you signed up for my certification program, and I distinctly remember seeing your registration come through, and I was like, who is this wizard? And I like went to your
Midnight,
website.
2 hours past my bedtime. Like, what was I even doing?
Are just drunk on future medicine on like a really big vision. And I remember I went to your website, and I am a woman who holds multitudes. I am a nerd, and I have like all kinds of different things about me that are all true, that are unfolding simultaneously. And I went and I like essentially I read your whole website. I went onto all of your social medias. I was like, oh my God, I love this woman so much. And we haven't even, like, it was just this like pure, complete level of like trust and eye to eye. And I'll just come back here again with my seeing with the eyes of the heart, right? I was like, she sees with the eyes of the heart. It was just like this extraordinary moment of just like, here we are, another beautiful person who's living at the vanguard of the human experience. You've got those beautiful flowers behind you. You've already shared so much wisdom, right? With like me, with the world. And to me, to be able to like help people like you to anchor into an even bolder, bigger, like one of the things you shared with me about what you loved about going through the certification program was that it helped you to just feel like more comfortable being yourself.
I think of that all the time, and it's like the first thing I noticed. And I think I cried after that first session that we did. No, no crying, no crying. I'm going to do it too. After that first session, I remember thinking, like, gosh, if she can be that weird, like, surely I can be myself. I was like, what have I
This will undoubtedly be like a steady part of the future medicine variety show. But you've heard me say this 1,000 times, and I can't not say it now. But So many people over the course of my own life told me that I was the weirdest person they had ever met. And as an aforementioned person who's living deep in a nerd forest and has always been like very curious about etymology and all the things, at some point when I was in my late teens or early 20s, I was like, what does the word weird mean? And I discovered through some research that in Old German, the word weird translates to mean destiny. And I remember reading that and being like, uh-huh. Yep, there is because here's the thing. To me, destiny is not like some prescription from, the heavens that like guides us and like sort of like micromanages our experience. To me, destiny is your soul lesson, the magic that you were created by like true creator, true source to share, to hold, to embody, to help other people remember the truth of who they are. And for me, when I hear the word weird, I'm like, yep, that's like literally just your soul magic. And but it is to like reflect that back for people, to hold that space. Like I know that's one of the gifts that I give to the people of earth, is for them to be able to be like, if that, wild wacky mf'er is like doing what she's doing, like who am I to like keep myself small? Like I know that I create this like really brilliant space for other people to just be like, this is who I am. This is what I have to share. And it's not just something that I have to share, but it's really an important message. And so to have had the chance to like mentor you into being bolder and more like confident in just sharing your incredible, unique lens of perception and the magic that you share, like it was so much fun. As we like move through the certification program, eventually everyone who goes through it ends up doing practice sessions with each other. And I was always like waiting with like really excited bated breath to hear about the sessions, especially with you, because people would be like, oh my god, she shared this thing about the flowers and the flower essences, and I'm taking this essence, and like weaving all of that into this sort of seamless, where you like came to the program with this deep library, as it were, of like profound wisdom that grew on the natural world and had so much like vibrational wisdom. And you had this like understanding about the multidimensionality of the human experience. And then being able to like fortify that and allow future medicine to just like catalyze it and build and give you like more power and more boldness and like more, so, just like powerful like self-expression, this like ferocity that I feel like to me that is like exactly why I wake up every day and I keep showing up, even though we live in a clone world that's very complicated, and it's a real journey to be a human. And I feel like for me it was just like such a like continued joy to like have you in my world, because you really get that.
And I love that we can use all of these, like any other tool we can use with future medicine, right? So as you said, like incorporating the frequencies of flower essences, like when I'm doing meditations and I'm doing group sessions, and it's like bring in these flowers that maybe people don't have, like they don't have it that they can use right in their hands, but they do have the frequency of it that they can tap into. And I think that's really cool and really powerful.
It's such a gift. I have always felt, I've been saying this for a very long time. Certainly I absolutely believe in like, using literal physical tools as well. But I really feel like everything
Is
is
medicine,
frequency,
everything's
right?
medicine.
Like
I
everything is medicine, everything is frequency, and everything has the ability, the more we can like tune into the vibrational experience of things, it really does change things for people.
I have to share the story of,
Please.
do you know Star of Bethlehem? Have you seen that? That's one of the flowers that's in Dr. Bach's Rescue Remedy. And
Yeah.
so no, 3 years ago, I was going through, it was probably 3 weeks of what I can only describe as like very intense, very severe ascension symptoms. and like the dizziness and the ear ringing, and like I was non-functional. I was basically just grounding myself, like just the old meme where the child is in the garden covered in dirt and they're like trying to ground themselves. I was just doing whatever I could to ground themselves, and I was in the garden and I was just like doing what I was doing, and it was in the middle of May, and it was right around the time that Jesus himself apparently ascended. So it's interesting, the timing, always around things. The day literally where I started having these symptoms, and I was in the garden and I discovered a flower I've never seen before, and some people might call it a weed. It was this beautiful flower with like these white petals on it, quite small, like, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And I was like, what is that? And I'm taking pictures, and what's your name? And let me get to know you better. And I realized that for the first time, I've never seen it before, but it was Star of Bethlehem growing. And like, what a perfect example as a flower essence of shock, trauma, pain, suffering, like both in the moment of what I was experiencing, and then also you can use it, you can use it for something that happened 20 years ago. So it's like that medicine was showing up for me, and like, how could I not then use it, right? How could I then not incorporate it into my own healing practice? And yeah, I just find it amazing, right? The flowers, nature will show up for us in whatever ways it needs to kind of make its presence known. I'd never seen that flower before, but of course I knew what it was when I saw it. It's just, to me, it's just it's a beautiful reminder of these, natural intelligences showing up to support us in our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual wellness.
I love that so much. And I shared this with you before we got going, but I have a hibiscus plant that um I've stewarded and loved for many years, and she has a flower that opened today. And hibiscus is one of my absolutely like tried and true. I loved hibiscus since I was little, and I always see that hibiscus is a really powerful ally in terms of being able to like help soothe the tender heart, to help us process grief, and to really help us anchor back into our physical body. When we're having moments of just like complexity, she is such a powerful ally. And so there was something so beautiful about having her open today. I think this is the fourth time this year that she's bloomed. And we had a funny moment I think it was January, because in January it was the first time that she bloomed this year, which is out of season for hibiscus in terms of like the hemisphere and like the climate in which I live. And you sent me a message on Instagram and you were like, how is your hibiscus blooming right now in like the depths of winter? Like, what is going on? And of course I was like, future medicine, baby. Like I give not just myself, but I give my cats, I give my plants, I give my crystals like a daily healing. And I swear to God, you guys, it changes things for people. This relationship that we have to the metaphysical and the divine is so important. So I just also wanted to share that because I feel like she opened for you very much. So
The difference between the way that you're practicing and using it with the way that other people might be using their own modalities, the intentionality at which you come with it, and the consistency of it, right? Like, you're using it on a regular and frequent basis, and I think that's the secret, right? We don't just do it once and we expect, the manifestation to come through, right? It's like, and how we have to be intentional. We have to also even show our guides, like, hey, this is important to me. I need this to make this happen, baby.
we are from my perspective infinitely powerful creator beings, and I think because of the conditions in this realm, it has made it complicated in a lot of ways for people to be able to tap into that and like leverage these gifts. And so that's the other reason why I feel like it's so important to come at things from that like very conscious, very, in a lot of ways it can be like sort of boring and a little bit methodical to just be like, all right, here I am again, like showing up, doing my daily practice, really like staying grounded in my body. And even when things are challenging and hard, and I think that's where like a lot of, to me, like the noise of the new age sort of like creates a very high level of misinformation people because again, people want those like fast experiences and to essentially like wake up and have everything changed overnight, which I think is possible when we get to the point where there's like a tipping point and enough of us, like I've always believed that like if all of us said, like, we're not doing this anymore, we're going to do something that's really different, we're going to reclaim our power and our sovereignty, things could literally shift in the blink of an eye. And again, I've seen that happen for people, but I do really believe that, like, to be able to engage with things even when things are challenging, to be able to like fortify your energetic boundaries, which these like practices that you share with people and my work really help people to essentially like build fortification over time. And that feels very important right now, to be able to like have that like steady level of support. So it feels like the perfect way to sort of wrap things up. For our viewers here, but I would love to have you share with people how people can get in touch with you, what you have cooking, what anything fun that you want to share in terms of like offerings.
Yeah. So obviously people can find me on my website. It's literally just first name, last name, Leigh Grange. Instagram, Facebook, and I'm working on something really cool, which kind of blends this idea of flower essences, future medicine, and it's a 12-week program that I'm running starting in the fall, where it's like for people who are brand new to flower essences, but also working them from this perspective of emotional alchemy. And I'm still kind of toying around the name, but it might be something like your inner garden or something along those lines. Is really geared toward tapping into your inner wisdom, and then with the flowers as support. And everybody's going to have a box of flower essences that they're using experientially throughout the weeks as we go along. So every week or 2 weeks, we're going to have a different flower essence that we work with. And so some of the kind of common ones that you might have heard of, and then also things like gold or gold gem essence, and to really anchor in those manifestations and the solar plexus, and like working with that energy of self-esteem and self-doubt and self-trust. And so it's going to be a custom collection that I'm creating for the purposes of this course. And yeah, so aiming for 12 weeks starting in late September. So that is something I'm so excited about.
Oh, that is really exciting. I can't wait to have you share that. It's interesting too. I know we're aiming to wrap it up, which we will in a second, but that energy of gold is something that I have been talking about quite a bit for the past couple of weeks. So I absolutely love that, because I feel like there is a way that, that energy of gold is meant to really like shine through. Like, to me, I feel like there is something in our own like blood and DNA that is perhaps literal gold. And that the more that we can anchor into those frequencies, it creates this like really profound and powerful inner to outer glow up in so many different ways. So I love that you shared that as an example. And you guys should definitely go find Ashleigh in all the places. I will also say that she is a guest expert in my free Facebook group, which we'll have the links. You can jump in there, but she comes into the group about once a week, and she shares some sort of her like deep wisdom with everyone who is there. So I highly recommend that you jump in if you want to find out more from her. But yeah, just jump into Ashleigh's world in all the ways. And thank you so much for joining us. You guys know that you can find me on my website, weareheretoremember.com. And please make sure to like and, comment and share this with people. It really helps build my channel, and it, helps me and Ashleigh and everyone who is part of this experience to be able to like create more impact and really, just
Find
lead
the
the call here, the vanguard of wisdom.
people we're meant to serve come to us, right? So it's just a question of like
That's
knowing
right.
knowing that there's options out there, right? So that,
Yeah.
maybe you have a diagnosis, maybe you have something that's kind of in your mind. It's like we have a totally different way of supporting your healing that you're not going to get from mainstream conventional approaches. Like do those, but also have the complementary modalities that are just going to really go to the root cause. Like I'm all about like finding whatever the root cause or causes is and really like tackling those versus just all of these band-aid solutions, because that it's like I don't need or want someone to just be doing this for the rest of their life. Like let's find out how to really shift things and change their frequency and like move them into a place where they're just surrendering to their own self-healing.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk soon.